So,
Cool, Lucian.
yeah, let's just go ahead and start. So first of all, thanks to all of you for joining. Really great to have a discussion about the validator rewards, the calculator, and a few details about the economic part. Hope everyone is fine during the Corona outbreak. I know there are very, very difficult problems around the world, and we are very much aware of those and hope all of you are home, maintain the social distancing measures, and yeah, are safe and have not been infected yet. The team, just a few things about the Elrond team. We've had some discussions about this problem a few weeks ago. It became clear to us that this could become a global pandemic, given the fact that the world.
Jeffrey, there's some noise on your end. I'm gonna mute you. Sorry.
Super. Yeah, so we understood that given the fact that we're at a level of hyperconnectedness that is unprecedented, and we have a highly viral and infectious epidemic, it was clear that this could become a pandemic if we would not take serious measures. So we've had several discussions with our team, have prepared a plan with basic triggers and actions, and have defaulted since last week to working from home. But we are happy that the whole team is fine, safe, has everything prepared, and for now we can focus, still maintain focus and push for the mainnet, because we want to make sure first that everyone is safe, but then also make sure that we keep focus and make progress towards what we set out to do. And then the third point, which I think is the reason why we are here today and want to discuss, is this discussion about the economic part. We've been going back and forth over the economic model, have been coming with several improvements, and are now at the point where I think it's very useful to have a discussion with you guys, hear some of your thoughts. So in the following minutes, Lucian will first start by going through some of the details of how we intend to start the network, bootstrap the network, and then how the rewards generally look, and what the reasoning has been to decide some of the parameters that we did. And so after we go through this, we will have a section for Q&As, where we want to take some of the questions, try to address them, and go hopefully through most of the important stuff. All the stuff that we, let's say, do not manage to cover, we'll try to address separately in writing, but we want to keep things on point and make it as productive a call as possible. So Lucian, I think it's good if you want to start.
Sure. Hi guys. So I'll try to go over the reasoning behind some of the decisions we've made that are reflected in the validator calculator that we already shared with you. Basically, I hope that some of your questions will be answered by what I'm going to tell you. So I'm going to share with you the validator pretty soon, so you can see some things that I'm referring to. So I'm going to share with you the same file you received. Are you able to see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So one of the first things I want to mention is the number of nodes. How did we came up with this number of nodes that we want to start with? Basically, those 1,500 nodes. There are basically a few reasons for doing this. There is a theoretical minimum number of shards that we need. Since we are a sharded network, we basically need at least one meta chain and one shard in order to have a working network. More than that, in order for us to show and have a working network that is able to do around 10,000 transactions per second from the beginning. From our estimations and the latest tests we've done internally with you in the last battle of nodes, and hopefully will be confirmed in the next battle of nodes, we came up with a number of 2 shards in the meta chains. Basically, we need 3 shards. And since we have this number of 500 nodes per shard, 400 validators, and 100 nodes in the waiting list, we came up with this number, 3 shards multiplied by 500 nodes. This is one of the things that I wanted to mention. The second things that might be worth touching is the node price. We know that we changed and played with this number since we started to make some public announcements regarding this price. Now, how did we came up with this 2.5 million Elronds per node? Is very easy. We take a look on how much was pre-staked in the current existing smart contract we have. Probably you are familiar with that. Probably many of you already pre-staked some or all their Elronds there. And as you may already know, the amounts that is already pre-staked there is somewhere around 3.8 billion Elrond. So basically, we did a very simple math. We said, okay, if we have 3.8 billion Elronds and we want 1,500 nodes, what would be the price that would mean per node? And this is how we came up with this number. Here, I want to stress the fact that this node price is just for phase 1. Just for the launch, the Genesis part, and the first period, probably a few months or something like that, after the launch of the mainnet. After this first phase, the mainnet is launched successfully. This node price will be more elastic, basically meaning there will be an auction smart contract, and the price per node will be decided by the market. And it probably fluctuates more at the beginning, but in time probably it will stabilize at a different price depending on how much the validators, the rewards, and the network is working, and everything else that could be taken into consideration: the crypto market, the market itself, the economy, the cost for running the node, and everything else will be up to each and one of you to measure and decide the price. So basically, it will be decided by the market after this initial phase. Moving forward, regarding probably if you take a closer look to the calculator, you've seen there are some differences between the first, second, and third year. Basically, the reward available for the first year is higher than the one on the second year, and then it's so it's decreasing with each year. Basically, also this reward that starts a little bit higher than for each subsequent year until the third year is dropping, is also directly related to the inflation, the maximum inflation possible. I want to explain a little bit also the reasoning behind this. And one of the main reasons to have a slightly different approach in the first 2 years was the fact that, as you probably everyone is aware, we are in a bootstrap. In the first year, we consider the first 2 or 3 years a bootstrapping period, and we decided that for those first years, we need to put more incentives on the table. This is on one hand. On the other hand, if you played a little bit with the calculator, probably you are already aware that all those numbers, ROI, profitability, and everything that is directly connected with, specifically with Elrond, is also directly connected to the price of and the value of the token, of the Elrond token. So basically, it's something that we all have very high hopes, and we know that Elrond will establish and will grow, and the value will be reflected in the price. But in order for us to model all those things right now and see how they will look in the future, it's not a very easy process. So we prefer then for the first 2-3 years, when there might be some volatility, still the network will need to establish, to put more incentives there. So basically, this is the reason to have the first 3 years look more interesting. On the other hand, we wanted to give from an economic, and not only from an economic point of view, we want to have some kind of predictability in regards to the inflation. Usually, when you look at a system from a financial and economic point of view, all the time, one of the main things that almost everyone look is what is the maximum inflation. So that's why we said that after the 3rd year, the maximum possible inflation will never exceed 5%. And after we publish the economic paper, actually you will see that the model we are presenting is a model that actually the better the network is doing and reflective in the transactions, the TPS that we'll see, the more the inflation will decrease. Also, especially at the beginning, since we don't expect at the day one to have thousands of transactions per second, although they would be nice, we still need the network to be sustainable by itself without the need of the fees generated by those transactions. But anyway, the model itself, the more it will evolve in a way that the more successful the network is, the lower the inflation it is. This will probably be better understood in the economic paper that I'm really glad to say that is a few days away to be made public to you. So you'll be able to understand more about the reasoning behind. There are 2 more things I want to cover, and then I'll give the mic to someone else, is the ROI. We had some discussions how we should present the return on investment, how the, let's say, profitability, if you want, or return on staking, or whatever term you want to use. And basically, if you look at the calculator, we provided two metrics, let's say. We said USD ROI and then return on staking. And I want just a little bit to cover and explain those two things. The easiest one is return on staking is basically how much more Elronds after 1 year I will have if I stake. So if, for example, in the first year, if I stake 1 million Elronds, I would expect at the end of the year to have 40% more, so 1.4 million Elronds. In the second year, this will decrease the number of Elronds I'm going to earn, and on the third years, it will stabilize at around 30%. But we thought that this doesn't show the real economical picture that we wanted to show. And we came up also with this so-called USD ROI, where we tried for each year, the first, second, and third year, to put a very conservative average price for the first year, for the second year, and for the third year, and to show how it's this return, this profitability is going to be reflected if the price is going to increase from 1 year to the second to the third year, even if the staking part is decreasing. And that's why you see this USD ROI that it looks that is improving in time. Of course, being directly correlated with the price of the Elrond. Last things I want to mention, and I'm sure that probably there will be other questions that you'll have when we reach the validator Q&A. But the last things I want to mention is what's about the users that don't have 2.5 million Elronds to run a node, or what about a validator that has I don't know, more than 2.5 million Elronds, but it's not enough to run 2 nodes. What we'll do with this excess of Elronds, or if you don't have enough to run a node, what you are going to be able to do is actually to delegate before the launch of the mainnet or the launch of the mainnet. You'll be able to delegate any amount of tokens and still earn rewards. They will be slightly lower than, of course, running your own node, but still very competitive. Probably this part can be covered today. Things are pretty clear. It's going to be very easy to delegate. It's going to be pretty similar with the pre-staking process that you already did, hopefully. Basically, you just need to specify the amount and the reward address where you received your rewards, and that's it. I believe this was my part where I tried to explain a little bit some of the decision we made regarding the calculator. I'm gonna let my colleagues to continue from here.
Sure. Thanks, Lucian. So the idea, guys, I think is that we went back and forth on the model and tried to come up with a model that first allows the network to bootstrap and take off. And the second point is that as adoption comes in, the network has a mechanism to allow for a transition to a sustainable point. So these 2 things have been taken into account specifically. The first priority has been bootstrapping, and the second priority has been adoption and sustainability. Now, before we jump to the Q&A part, which I think all of you are expecting, I'll just say that I'll just answer the most important question, which I think is on everybody's mind. How far are we from the mainnet launch? And I would give two answers to that. Two answers. As we mentioned during our previous calls, discussions, and announcements, we have 2 or 3 moving targets that we look for and we judge so that we can say when the network is ready. The first one, which is right now in sight, is the feature freeze. I've mentioned on Twitter that as soon as we have the feature freeze, then we'll have another announcement and give an update on that. It seems by the progress we are making that we are very, very close in the sense of a few days, hopefully by the end of this week, if not middle of next week. And then the feature freeze essentially signals 2 things: that we have been doing another audit with the guys from Trial of Bits, trail of bits, and this is again very important, but even more important, what is essential for you guys is that we are preparing for the last Battle of Nodes competition. Now, the last Battle of Nodes competition is the final sort of moving target in addition to the mainnet staking part. But the final Battle of Nodes competition, we're essentially start as soon as we are done with the feature fees and have implemented the feedback from Trail of Bits, if there is any. So ideally, it seems that by the end of next week, we should have tentatively this already, and then we should probably be ready to have a dry run during the weekend, at least. And I'm making sure that I convey that we put the best effort into moving toward that direction, but that this is a bit tentative. And if we manage to put everything together, hopefully by the end of next week, we will have a dry run of the Battle of Nodes just for fun during the weekend. And then hopefully on Monday, we'll be able to start the last Battle of Nodes competition. Now, why do I say this? Because as you know, at the same time, we'll also prepare for the mainnet staking phase, through which we shift from this current phase to the second step and shift to what we're doing specifically to transition to the mainnet. And the final piece that will allow us to start the Genesis block is essentially having the network run for 15 days without interruptions. Now, we've put a lot of effort into adding specific models that prevent the network going down through flooding, and our core team has put together a lot of improvements to make sure that it's more robust than ever. But there is no better test before the Genesis launch than putting the network up and trying to attack it, trying to take it down in different ways. And if the network withstands this final trial by fire, then we know we are finally ready not only to offer a network which, if you've noticed something as Lucian was explaining things, we've changed something very specific. In the previous discussions, we had a scenario where with 5 shards plus meta chain, we could achieve 10,000 transactions per second. And we were extremely excited during the last couple of weeks when our core team came up with several significant improvements so that we can achieve 10,000 transactions per second with 2 shards cross meta chain instead of 5 plus meta chain. So we want to make sure that we not only put a network that can finally process 10,000 transactions per second, but it has some proper incentives in place to allow people to come in and provide services. Then the network is also secure, and we can finally start building on it and prepare it for adoption. Now I think it's a great time to shift to the Q&A, and we can take one by one different questions, try to answer them, and go doing this for a few minutes until we feel like clarifying things.
Team, I muted everyone. In order to allow for everyone to ask questions, please use the raise hand button and then unmute yourself so we can ask questions in a civil manner. Thank you. Can everyone see the, okay, there we go. Alvin, go for it, Alvin, you're unmuted.
Hey, Sever, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, man.
How do I pronounce your name?
Sever.
Sever? Sever. Okay. Nice to meet you, bro.
Nice to meet you.
I have a
too,
question. So we want to have 1,500 validators, but currently we're far below 1,500, I think. So where will the other validators come from in such a short time? Will it be or?
Sure, that's a great question. So the idea is we want to have 1,500 nodes, not 1,500 validators, meaning that there are a number of community people that will run nodes by themselves, and there are a number of community people that just want to delegate. So we've put in place a discussion, several discussions actually with staking as a service providers, so that they can help with this. The Elrond team will also run several nodes just to make sure that the security assumptions of the network will be in place until we have the slashing mechanism implemented. So at this point, the nodes, the 1,500 nodes will basically split as follows. There will be community run nodes, staking as a service run nodes, and Elrond network run nodes. Hope this clarifies the question.
Great question, Alvin.
Can you give like proportions for the 1,500? So, or will the Elrond team just fill in the rest until 1,500?
Yeah, so we have, the scenario is as follows. The more people we have, it's better, but we have a scenario where in any case we can start. There's no problem with that. So this scenario is already in place. Now, starting from this scenario, we try to increase the number of nodes that are run by the community and run by staking as a service providers, and make sure that we reach the sort of best possible situation until we are ready to bootstrap the Genesis.
Excellent. Vasile?
Yeah, so thank you guys. Again, first, great achievement. We've seen really good throughput and really low resources use. I would be interested on the validation side to know if the number of validators that are already subscribed is going to be 100%, let's say, approved, or is the list bigger than what you have expected or smaller? Just to make ourselves an idea on how the validators community is filling in your requirements.
I think that given the situation we are in right now, the results are quite positive, and we're excited to not only see that there are people from the community who really are enthusiastic and are looking forward to run nodes, but there are also several staking as a service providers that are in, and we're trying to onboard even more. But even more interesting, there's also this possibility that once people from our community understand how things are run, they might want to transition from running nodes to becoming staking as a service providers, which is also very interesting and a good idea to have in mind. So we're seeing all the three categories of people raising, sort of starting to appear in our community, growing in number. And the idea is, for us, it's much more important to have the day one and start it and then improve constantly than to start with some really high numbers, but then maybe not have the network working or have some other problems. The most important thing would be have the network ready, start with the people that we have, and then at that point, the network will start speaking for itself based on the results we can show.
Okay, and now if I'm allowed another question, I would be also interested to know about the staking as a service, if there is a process to, let's say, register, or at the moment it's just discussions within the validators community.
Yes, it is a discussion, but if any of you which are interested in this process, I would say just ping Lucian, and he will start the discussion to give you an idea of what is usually required. We would be very happy to provide some feedback, even help some of the people try these things out, learn what is required, and maybe start, if you have the necessary resources, start having Elrond as the first network where you not only stake for yourself but also provide services to others, which is quite interesting. But please ping Lucian for this, and he'll be very happy to go through the discussion.
Yes,
Okay.
very happy to help you and chat with you, whatever questions you have in regards to this validation service.
Okay, Stewie, you're up, man.
Okay, so now regarding to the setup that we will need for the node that will be in the mainnet, we will use the same setup that we have now on the nodes. This is one question, and it is connected to the other, which is, do you have in mind to provide some training session for your validators?
For sure. I will just cover the training session part, and then Lucian, you can cover the part about the specs and so forth. So we are actually in discussion right now with a few different validators from different communities, which have received some have already gone through this process already, have learned a lot of lessons, have put out some interesting documentation parts, and we are taking this on and preparing them for our validators as well, so that we can have a process where we have maybe several calls like this, where we go through stuff, then prepare frequently asked questions, then have a more closed community where you can at any time ask questions and so forth. But the short answer is yes, we are proactively trying to prepare this kind of material and intend to go through the process. Lucian, if you can cover the other part.
Yes, one other thing in terms of the setup, we are currently working on the new documentation version. So this, because of the latest updates and merges we made, there are a lot of changes that they should take into consideration by your setup, like, okay, putting or setting up a node the proper way with the right specs will eventually turn out to give you a better reputation or a better rating in your node, in your validation, and that gives you in the end more rewards or more chances to get elected as a validator. And all those stuff needs to be as clear and as simple as possible, and maybe also should be we are working on translating this into a simple step-by-step process how everyone should approach this. Right, in terms of the specs for the Battle of Nodes, we have required a minimum of dual-core processor with 4 GB of RAM and 100 megabits of internet and SSD hard drive. I think for the very first version of the mainnet, their system requirements will be way lower than that. I think right now, if we look at the system right now, we are running about 10,000 or with a peak of 12,000 transactions per second and an average of about, I think, 4,000 transactions per second with the current setup. And we are, in my cases, I'm using right now about 40% load of these dual core processors with those numbers. So looking at those numbers and yeah, 1 GB of RAM. So if we consider that in the very first version of the mainnet, we'll have like maybe a way lower load in the first versions, then as well the system requirements and the specs will be way lower than that. So I won't suggest you, I cannot tell you that you should run on on a dual core machine, maybe multiple instances. If you do so, make sure that your setup is being able to handle some sort of auto scaling, where those machines are migrated in real time in case of the band of the network increases over time. It should be able to just migrate the boxes or the instances easily on a better hardware. And if we are able to prepare in some way, in some sort of this way, the setup of our nodes, I think we're gonna be very, very cost efficient and resource efficient at the mainnet level, right? So we're handling, and I think we're gonna play with this in the next weeks in the battle of nodes, and we should do some runs with way higher numbers of validators. I'm expecting to do like in 1 week or 1.5 weeks some simulations with maybe 1,000 validators, where we spin up a lot more numbers and just see and simulate like a mainnet version. And if we run this like for a few days or 2 or 3 days, I think everyone will be able to look at their setup, make the right decision, and assume that, okay, maybe one single core or the dual core machine could handle maybe 1-2 validators. But it's very important that we yeah, Beniamin?
I would say that we'll definitely make some clear suggestions to simplify the discussion. We'll have a kind of recommended scenario where it's maybe the least costly, but also the most efficient, because if you don't have the best of both scenarios, then at that point you might have some other troubles with the network. But we'll definitely make some clear suggestions on this front very, very soon with the new, as soon as we test with the new version we have right now.
I was asking this because all on my nodes that I'm using now, I have with 400% more than I need. And I'm doing this in order to see what I will need. And the other question is, okay, I decide that provider is not suitable for this node. What I will need to move, for example, I decide to move my node from one provider to another. I will need only those PME files, right? When I move my node.
That's right. That's right. So basically, you can spin up the node as an observer. Let it sync with some other keys, with some random keys. Be up to date, be in sync, and just turn off that other validator. Move the key to the new validator. Make sure that you have synced the shard you have been allocated to. And if we do so, then you're up in almost 0 downtime.
Team, just administrative, if the meeting automatically ends, I will post a new link in the validators chat, so keep your eyes on there. Now, who wants to ask the next question, please?
I would just say one thing. So it's probably best that at the end of the discussion, you guys make a list of top important things where we should answer very brief and pointed question, put very brief and pointed answers, like what's the spec recommended, what are the top 3 potential service providers that you've seen, and so forth. So I think this will help answer, and your questions are very good because they inform this kind of FAQ.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Flying Stone?
Yes. Right. The question is about the slashing mechanism. So do I understand that at the launch of mainnet that will not be in place yet, but do you already have an expectation of when that will be in place, and at least an outline of what the conditions resulting in slashing will be? Thanks.
Yeah, so I think I'll go a bit into when and how we intend to implement this, and then Lucian, maybe you can give an idea on what the latest overview on the conditions are. The idea is as follows: when you're starting a network as complex as this, you want to make sure that you have the pieces put together and make sure that it's working properly. And then as soon as you make sure it's working properly, then you want to add the second component and increase complexity, because otherwise, if you put all these things together from day one and do not have the needed time to test them, then you'll run into many other problems, unforeseen problems, and problems you cannot anticipate before you start experimenting and running the network. So the idea is that we want to start the genesis, run with a kind of closer community of people, validators, taking as a service providers, and the Elrond network. And then in the next 2 to 3 months, have all the parts ready for implementing slashing and any other point that is required in order to properly have a functioning slashing mechanism. So while I don't have the specific time frame, it seems at this point that it will probably take something like on the order of 1 month to have this ready for testing, and we will run probably a battle of nodes in parallel to to the mainnet to start experimenting with that, and then in 2 or 3 months maximum we'll have the slashing mechanism also implemented in this. Lucian, if you want to give some ideas on the conditions.
Yes. So I'll ask. I think Adrian is here. Adrian is actually working and has been working on this for a while. I think Adrian, can you
guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So for the slashing mechanism, we actually have the technical analysis done. It's also we have identified the cases where we want to apply slashing. Of course, we expect that we will identify some more cases where slashing will be needed. And just a brief high-level overview for what is slashable, what action is slashable. That is every action where it can be proven that the validator was the malicious party. So every action with the signature on from a malicious validator or a malicious leader that can be proven by the chain as malicious. So the conditions for this are identified. We have the situations. I think we have like 10 or so situations where we intend to apply the slashing mechanism. We have tried to order this by gravity, like what can happen if this is not detected and punished. What is the effect, like if it's a loss of funds, what is the effect on the network? Because it may also be, for example, you do not cause a loss of funds, but you cause the network damage by clogging it or causing some high or intensive workload. These situations have also different parties that can be detected as either colluding, or there is a single validator which proposed. So all these conditions and all these let's say actors need to be specifically identified, and then the slashing mechanism can be applied. The slashing mechanism actually has a few phases. One is the detection phase, where each node participating in a shard, for example, either a validator or an observer node, can and will detect the malicious behavior if they're running the official Elrond solution in the client, which is publicly available. And then it's the reporting phase. By default, the nodes will have also the function of a fisherman. This is the node that detects malicious activity in the network. But there also is the need for something else in order to avoid, let's say, spamming the network with invalid challenges. And because these challenges are a bit heavy on the network, because they need to be validated by a different shard than where the action was produced, then they need to have some cost on this. So every reporting of a malicious activity, every challenge needs to be done through a transaction, and for this transaction to be generated and sent to the system, then the node that acts also as a fisherman needs to have some wallet with some funds configured. Now, this, as I mentioned before, all nodes can act as a fisherman, and by default will be acting as a fisherman. If there is no wallet configured, then the challenge part will not be done. But for the workload of the validator, there is no extra workload being a fisherman, because they already do the validation as the normal process as an observer or a validator node. So there's no extra processing done by being a fisherman. It's only on the reporting phase. But if there is a malicious behavior detected and you go to the reporting phase, then you also expect some earnings as a result.
What I think would be very interesting for the people is maybe also the amount of slashing, like what's the percentage, if it goes to 100 directly, or if it's in different phases.
Yeah, I think here Lucian can add, because this I think we wanted to take it gradually and not do a full slashing unless it is a colluding, like you have a big colluding group and you can prove that. So even in that case, I'm not sure if it's currently we have discussed of total slashing. Lucian, maybe
yeah, there are multiple approaches that we are thinking of, and we will come up with a clear definition of where and what will be slashed. But one thing is clear, that we are by default trying to avoid any
accidental loss of
accidental fault. Exactly. Thank you, Adrian. So by default, if you are not tampering your code base, you should not be able to get slashed. Only by tampering or changing the behavior of the default software we are delivering, and for example having a double sign activity, proposing 2 blocks at the same time in the same round with 2 different views about the network. That should be, for example, something that will most probably get slashed. So by going offline for a short period of time, most probably won't get slashed for sure. But other malicious activities like tampering the coding, trying to push invalid transactions, trying to propose invalid blocks or stuff like that, it is a provable on-chain activity, malicious activity done by one certain identity.
Yeah, if I may add one more thing. As I mentioned, we try to identify all the cases that are malicious and can be proven as malicious by the network, and also to order them by the gravity and what the effect is on the network and on the user's funds. And according to this, to add the scheme for slashing. So for example, what Lucian mentioned before, with a double sign, there will be some slashing, but the slashing amount here will not be that large, because this can only affect the network in a way that it may induce a fork at some time, and then there is some higher load, or not load, but some more processing to be done to decide between those forks. But otherwise, there is no loss of funds by this activity, so the punishment is not that big. But otherwise, for example, if you try to push a block with an invalid state, like you've definitely changed something either in the state of a smart contract data or in the state of the account tree, then this is definitely malicious behavior, and the slashing amount will be higher. So probably will publish also this when we have this all the criteria finalized. There will be it will be published.
Thank you, guys. Excellent. Who wants to ask the next question, please? Is this it? Are there no more questions? If you're trying to... Yeah.
Everything's so clear today.
Yeah. For some reason, we can't hear you. I think there's a problem with your mic.
For who?
Can you hear me now?
Ah, Jose. Hey, man. We can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
All good.
Yeah. Okay. I need to be close to the laptop. Okay. You see me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. I have a question about the calculator, because I see your approach on year 1, year 2, and year 3. The number of nodes, it's like a fixed variable in the calculator. You don't keep in mind the number of nodes for the second year, for example. It will be because I mean, some of the investors that last autumn, last summer purchased, I have plenty of friends that purchased the tokens to run nodes at say 0.0030 USD, more or less, and to grow up the number of nodes, you need to keep in mind that the price must be higher than this, because the rewards will be lower with more than 1,500 nodes. Do you have thinking about some mechanism to solve this with the price and the number of nodes? You know.
Yes, I'll take this question.
Sure.
Definitely, there is a mechanism that we have in mind, and it's very easy to be explained. Basically, the reason to increase the number of nodes would be to add one more shard. The reason to add one more shard would be that the network is in need for more TPS, or to balance the existing shards, because, for example, the load is more than, let's say, 50%, and we want the shards to remain at 50%, and so we need another shard. This basically, from our estimations, means that probably we'll reach a few thousand TPS. So it's probably not going to. It's a nice problem to have. Let's put it like this. And the way we simulated and we decide to put the transaction fee is, when this happened, somewhere around, let's say, 3,000, 5,000 transactions per second. When this happens, it means that the number of fees collected in a year is going to be higher than it will be so much higher that the inflation is going to zero. And more than that, it means that, for example, if in the first year is the rewards that are distributed to all the nodes, those 1,500 nodes, is $1.5 billion, and then is decreasing, it means that actually the number of rewards is going to exceed this number. So it's going to be, let's say, 2 billion. And this would mean that all the existing validators, even if the number of nodes is increasing, they will still earn the same or almost the same amount. And basically, let's say that this new shard is going to be financed. It will be financed by the increased TPS that actually is going to. And this is a balance that we are looking for. Definitely, we try to simulate with the current information, and we'll need to see. But basically, this is the mechanism we are taking into consideration. and we'll need to see when this happens, what and how much we need to tweak this, if it will be. But this is the mechanism.
Okay.
I would also add one small thing. So the idea is that, as Lucian mentioned, you have on the one hand all the fees that are carried by the network and outweigh the inflation that you have. But then we have also considered the potential that we add a certain inflation for the first 3 shards that we might want to add. If, say, for some reason you don't have the adoption that you require to have the shard self-finance itself, then at that point there's also a scenario that we have thought where the network for the first 3 shards is financing them with an increased inflation on the assumption that a shard is only required where you want to increase adoption. And in order to not prevent adoption, you might finance that, although eventually this inflation will go down back, and then you'll able to move forward. But the first scenario is the one we are going with right now, although we are also considering the second option as a kind of plan B.
Thank you.
Sure.
Excellent question, Jose. Thank you. Who wants to ask the next question, please?
Hi, I have a question. This is Marvaldo.
Hi.
Hello. Hello.
And are you worried about the concentration of nodes in one single provider, like Contable?
Yeah. I think as a provider, and as the community grows and we approach a mainnet, the mainnet pretty soon, I think people will start and will eventually grow up with your systems. So they will definitely, once you see some system or you take some system from the playground to a production level, we will definitely advise you, and we will monitor as well the location, and we'll try. I think we will definitely try to advise as many people to take the things towards decentralization. Really, that's what we are aiming for and what we are targeting, and this allows us very good by our network design. So currently, I think it's important that people survive during this market and they can still come up with the same input on our testnets. It's in the same time important that once we approach the mainnet, everybody should consider their system specs and setups to be upgraded to an enterprise level. I think that summarized. And if Contabo is at the enterprise level, I'm not. I don't want to go into that into that topic. For the price they are delivering their services, I think we should all be grateful, and I think they're doing a good job for the few bucks per month. But yeah.
Okay, thanks.
I also mentioned that this is why we have the 3 options. So part of the nodes will be run by community validators, parts of the nodes will be run by staking as a service partners, part of the nodes will be run by Elrond, at least at the beginning. And so we'll try to make sure that we first prevent the situation from happening by advising people. Second, the fact that we have 3 sort of camps of different people that are running this also makes this even more unlikely. And then, yeah, hopefully we'll be in the situation where things grow up with the network.
I'm one more thing in here. I'm worried about having all the entire community hosting their nodes on the same provider, of course. But on the same time, I'm also working on a project at the same time where I'm aiming to build an infrastructure project or like a side project for Elrond where you guys can profit from it and everybody should be able to run and adopt it. So the project should be able to abstract almost any infrastructure provider at the lowest cost as possible. And if something happens in real time to any of those cluster or pods or instances on the cheapest provider, then the system should upgrade itself to the next provider. And you can define like quotas and stuff like that, how many machines you want to distribute on each zone and stuff like that. But this it's quite complicated to have it up and running from one day to another. But I'm working on this, and once I have achieved it and have it up and running for us, I will. I'm targeting to open source it and give it to you to advise you. And then I cannot say, okay, you should not run into one specific provider, but at least in this way you will be able to survive if something happens with that provider, right? So you will be able to have your way out right away.
Yeah, with the implementation of the peer rating, I'm pretty sure nobody will risk their Elrond stash on a $5 per month node. So I think the situation is going to take care of itself. Great question, and thank you. Who wants to ask the next question?
Hello.
Salut, Adi.
Hello, guys. Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I want to ask you something, because a lot of people want to have a good performance for the nodes. No, it's enough if we rent a VPS with normal spec, like, I don't know, 2 cores, 4 GB for RAM, or some people want to have more powerful, I don't know, 6 or 8 GB for one node, or 6 core for one node. It's waste of money, or it's enough the minimum spec? Because it's a difference for 5 euros or 100 euros.
Yeah, so there are two, the minimum requirements. There are always the minimum requirements, and of course we cannot say, and we cannot be more grateful if you want, or if you decide to upgrade and go above that. I think the system should be able to thank you for doing that. But the most important is to not go under the minimum specs and have the dual core. And then there's another level of measuring the performance of one system. It's not only about the CPU and the amount of memory. It also there's another. If you look into details, you will see that some providers with the same dual core will deliver you more power than the other one, right? So each CPU, each memory, each storage system has its own performance, and that's what it's up to. If you go with if you look at the for example level, security level, uptime level, and performance level, your provider should be able to deliver you some benchmarks about what those numbers really mean in output performance. So if you look at really a good dual core machine like AWS, there are tier machines. You can get the lower tier, or the cheapest machine you can get would not ensure you 100% uptime. Will ensure you that it's up and running right now. That's why it's so low in price compared to a same machine that is delivering you the same performance, but it's ensuring you a 100 or 99.9% availability of it. Does it make sense?
Yeah, because now I have double like spec, no? I think it's more than enough. I don't think I have to rent something more powerful because it's waste of money, maybe.
No, don't go above that. If you have already the double, make sure that the provider you are using is able to deliver you the uptime you need. Look at maybe at the history of the provider and make a short due diligence and see if there was any failure in the last 6 months or something like that, where they went offline and people suffered or services went down. Right? So maybe that's something you could do as a preparation for the mainnet. Make sure that your machines are safe.
Yeah,
Right.
the provider is, of course, Contano. But I make a lot of research to find something else with a good price, and
Don't
very
share
hard.
it with the community if you find something.
I need to make a visit to the provider and talk to them by myself and make sure that they are doing the good job for our community.
No, the problem is a lot of another company, they don't give you unlimited internet. This is and I don't know how much I need.
That's a good question.
How much? Oh, how much internet we need for? I don't know, 1 month, for example.
Well,
because sometimes they give you, I don't know, 100 gigabytes or.
Alvin, did you want to add something?
Well, you can choose providers according to the number of terabytes of data traffic, and it's hard to choose because you don't know what the transactions will be like during mainnet. They will contain much data, or how, you know what I mean. So, what are the specs for the traffic per month?
I think starting the next week, we will have in the battle of nodes. We will have in the battle of nodes the network sharding. I think that was the missing part for a while, which should go the traffic, the average traffic spent by a node way lower than the actual rate. That should decrease at least to 50. We are targeting, or we are thinking, I think, by 50% lower traffic, average traffic on high demand. Right, on a heavily load. And once we have this implemented and rolled out, I think and you guys have as well the monitoring system in place. You can just measure the traffic which goes out by your node and see what you spend, right? We can do it like for 2 hours, for 6 hours, make sure that the network is only running with very low amount of transaction. Like I can just simulate and put in only 100 transactions, or how much you think we decide to want to simulate for the first version, and then go higher and measure and take the measurements for the next 4 hours with a different number of transactions, and then just multiply that by the hours that are in a month.
Whoa, check out the Dr. Delphi in the chat. So during the first battle of nodes, the usage was 5.4 terabytes in 47 days, but we have network sharding now. So I think things will be a lot more difficult.
I think one thing is that Mihai was causing at least 3 of that 6 terabytes was caused by Mihai. So Mihai, very good job.
Like 800 connected nodes, right? 800, 900 connected nodes.
Yeah,
and now that is going to go down drastically.
Exactly.
I would also make sure that people have a kind of clear, simple explanation. So the simplest version of answer is we'll find out a good proxy approximation for the bandwidth necessity during the next few weeks, and then the latest during the next during the first month of the Genesis, you'll be able to recalibrate very fast. So after a month, then you'll be able to say, okay, this is what I need. I have 10 times that. I don't really need that. I can cut it to 5 times and move forward, and then that's fine. But during the next few weeks, you'll be able to have a good approximation on that.
Excellent conversation, guys. Who wants to ask the next question, please?
So one more time about the bandwidth. So would you say for now, like 5 terabytes per month per node would be more than enough?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I think we first need to do the simulation, but I guess it will be enough. We will give the numbers after probably next week. We'll give some numbers, but you need to keep in mind that what we've tested in the Battle of Nodes were some scenarios where we tried to heavily push transactions into the system. So we ended up with thousands of transactions per second, which is not exactly what will happen in day one. So it will be some time to grow to thousands of transactions per second. So basically, we need to do some simulations with different loads, different throughput of the network, and then we'll probably do some charts and show some what are the requirements with the different load of the network.
Yeah, I think we just did 280 million transactions today. I think that's Ethereum in a year or something, right? So
yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful problem to have.
Sorry, Sever.
No,
one more thing is that we optimize as well the throughput inside the chain, like the amount of data that we communicate from one node to another, and the amount of requests being done from one node to another for a simple transaction or for a simple block propagation and stuff like that have been optimized very, very hard in the last month. I think that should. Yes.
This has been halved a couple of times, so
yes,
expect lower.
We've reached the point where it's zero right now.
Yeah, no, like right now, if we look
negative,
you get passive income.
No, but if we look, for example, right now at the nodes, there the numbers we are speaking of for one simple instance right now with this current load is, I think, around 15 megabits. Like this is 1.5 megabyte up and 1.5 megabyte down. That's very, very low. If we agree that 10,000 or maybe 5,000 of transactions are a decent number for average.
Okay.
Also, what I want to add to my colleagues Lucian and Adrian is that we also have an anti-flooding and anti-spamming system in place that will drastically reduce the chances to be flooded by unwanted information or garbage. And this will show up when a particular malicious node will try to send multiple data or multiple requests, and those nodes will say, okay, I will stop asking and listen for you, and I will disconnect from you. And so also with this mechanism, we will try to lower the minimum bandwidth required for the nodes.
I just want to say excellent job on optimizing system specs. Also RAM, it's been reduced over the last few months in a big way. So congratulations on the progress so far.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Stewie, you have your hand raised, please.
Yes, I have two questions. Our first one is, our nodes will be able to receive delegators. If someone will want to delegate, our nodes will be able to receive delegators. This is the first question. And the second question is, okay, I'm in the mainnet, I'm there for 1 year, and I decided that the rewards that I receive is not enough for me. What is the procedure to withdraw a node from the mainnet and to receive the funds that are staked?
Excellent question.
Thanks for the question. I could jump in here. So at Genesis, you will be automatically registered to a staking smart contract, and when you are not satisfied with how the rewards are working, or you cannot run your node, or something happened, you have to send a transaction through which you say that you unstake. So you send the transaction to a smart contract saying that I want to unstake. After the unstaking happened, you have to wait 10 days, a period of 10 days of unbonding period. And only after that, you have to send another transaction named unbond, and through that, you will receive all the funds back to the address you specified. So, and in order to still receive some of the rewards, because you are still a validator even after you unstake for at least 1 day, it is better for you to not close your computer, because evidently you still have to wait 10 days. So 1 more day of keeping it alive, it's not a problem.
Yep, good point. So,
okay.
Sure.
For the first question about the delegation, if you have multiple running nodes and you want other people to delegate to you, you actually have to deploy a smart contract in which people will delegate money for you. We are getting ready, we are making it ready to have a template smart contract ready for the community working on it, in which each delegator can specify in its setup the service fees, the unbonding period, the rewards, and when the rewards will be given, and they can deploy it. Then they can convince people that they are good and they should delegate to you, and you are running a good service.
But my node, it's already have 2.5 million ERD. If someone will delegate to me, for example, 1 million ERD, in the same node, it is possible, or do I need to set up a new node for that?
No. So this is a separate process. It is supposed to be seen as separate because it will also be treated as separate. This is why we mentioned that there is a process through which people from the community can become staking as a service providers. But at this point, we can basically start discussion and giving you the overview on what it would take, because this requires much more than just running a node. This requires that you become public, that you convey to people why they should trust you, why they should put the money with you, why you have very high availability infrastructure and so forth. And to even help people from our community, we've gone through this process, tried to outline it, and I would invite anyone just to start pinging Lucian afterwards and discuss the process, but just outline that this is very separate from running a node yourself.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, one other constraint here is that if you only have one single node and you get some delegation, this means that some other instance will be registered for the new delegated Elronds, and that instance may be assigned to a different shard. So your node probably won't be able to take all the load and CPU, memory, network to be able to run in 2 different shards at the same time. So this is the main reason why it's different.
Okay.
Sure. Any other questions?
I have one.
Sure. Please.
Okay, I want to ask you, it's important for me, or maybe not just for me. I want to have a backup to my node, but I don't know how to do it because maybe, okay, rent another VPS or use my home PC. The problem is how huge will be the database, because maybe I need a week to be synchronized and start again.
No, so at the mainnet release, there will be, right now we have already deployed epoch change, and with every epoch change, every 24 hour, we are making a snapshot of the current state, and we supposed to delete it. So you shouldn't be keeping the data older than I think last epoch, meaning that the last 48 hours in sum. Adrian?
Yeah, it's 2 epochs currently are active. So you have the storage for the storage and the configuration and so on of nodes assignment per shards for the 2 epochs, for the last 2 epochs. Of course, there is in configuration, you can also set up that you want to have an archive node, which will keep the entire database, but this is your entire your option.
So I think the sync process for a new node at the mainnet level will be pretty low for if everything goes as it should. I think it should not take more than 1-2 hours. I think for the
especially with a lower TPS.
Even less, because syncing a node even after hundreds of epochs, you will start to sync from the current one only. So you will have to sync you will have to get the blocks for the current epoch, which is not a big data.
So yeah, the last 48 hours in worst case.
But what I think is Adrian asking is basically what everyone will find out in the validator, let's say, process that workshop that we'll organize, is basically that there is indeed a good, it is a good idea to have a backup. You'll find out how, what the easiest way is to set up a backup for your node, and all what our guys were answering right now is that it's not only easy, but it will be also be very fast to just sync the new node in case your main node falls. So it's fine, and we'll try to prioritize this kind of workshop for the validators, because these are really good questions.
The most important thing is to keep your keys safe. Make sure that you have encrypted somewhere outside the node or somewhere outside the server the private keys or the keys to your node, right? I think that's the most important one. The state can be recovered, but the keys cannot.
You have to keep also the key through which you registered your nodes as well saved. So at least one transaction signing public key and one VLS key.
That's yeah, the key, the normal set. Yes. Yeah, Adrian? Yes, please.
I want to ask you, maybe the fastest way to synchronize is to have friends, they upload the DB and we can download it.
Yes, there will be, I think there will be definitely projects like that where we will take snapshots of the state and post it every few hours, like somewhere where you can go in case something happened, you can just take the state and put it in place.
You can estimate how big supposed to be, I don't know.
At the maximum, we estimate, so the worst case ever could get, we have foreseen in the first version was, I think, 200 gigabytes, right?
This is also the worst case and the best case. The worst case being you need to download a lot of data. The best case being that there were a lot of transactions. This is with full load.
Yes. Exactly, meaning that a lot of rewards for you guys, like for everyone who runs a validator node.
Okay, I have to keep my friends closer, I think.
Yes, and also you need to make sure that the state you are getting from your friends have not been tampered in any way. So it's very important to make sure that your friend have not changed the history of that chain and have sent you a wrong or a tempered database. I think that's something where you might get slashed if you propose a block with a wrong view about the history. So
it will be a bit difficult to get slashed because of that, because once you download the data, it will take some time to enter the system with that data, and of course you need to synchronize the new blocks, which probably you will not be able to.
Yeah.
So it will not translate into a loss of funds.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions, guys?
Yes, I have a question.
Sever, can you help us with the mic from Lohit? Maybe. Yes, thank you.
Salt.
Yes, hey.
Hello.
Hello, Jose. Sure. Yes, a bit louder.
About your comment, Lucian, of the keys. I have been studying my systems last weeks. The worst scenario with the keys, I mean, suppose the worst scenario, some guy in the data center get to the systems, I don't know how, but he get the keys, okay? In this scenario, I mean, when we register a node in the system, I think that we need the keys and a wallet. We need a wallet to make the transaction to sign the smart contract. No?
Exactly.
And then if someone has the PEM files, but doesn't have access to the wallet, it cannot register a new node, no?
Exactly. So it cannot steal your funds. It can just undelegate, for example. So no. So as long as he doesn't have the access to the transaction signing key, then cannot move or do anything to the funds. But what he can do is to get access to the BLS key, to the block signing key. And having access to the block signing key means that he can double sign or can maybe shut down your node and make the work for you, right? So he can validate with you. No, I was joking.
So if he gets access to your node's private key, then of course he can register a node using the same key and try to do something malicious on the network on your account. So if the action is a slashable action, then you might get penalized for it.
Guys, excellent stuff. Thank you. I think we're double. We're 2 times over our allocated time, and I think the questions will keep coming. Excellent stuff. Thank you so much for joining. We can, I think, schedule a follow-up call like this again, because I think there's a lot of need and interest from everyone. And I know that a lot of you in the call here are yet to ask some very good questions. Thank you. I think it's fair that we end it here. Before you go, can we take one digital group picture? If you guys are okay with it, can you enable your cameras? I will make a screenshot and then we can post this. There we go. All right, guys. All right. Let's see more cameras. Okay. Wow. All right, guys. One screenshot. All right.
Everybody smiling. Cheese.
Excellent stuff, guys. All right. Great. We have a great community. I'm so happy. We're so happy to see you guys. Thank you so much for joining. We had 44 people on at the same time, which is crazy. I've been recording this. I'll post it for everyone who wants to see it after that. Just write me privately if you don't want your picture shared or name or for whatever reason, and we'll deal with that. And thank you again. And maybe Benny, some closing statements.
No, so thanks a lot, guys. We'll try to have this more during the next period, more conversations like this. It's very good that we recorded the discussion, because we want to take some of the interesting questions that you guys suggested and put them in an FAQ. And then any other questions, now is the time. Maybe if you have them, put them in the channel. Server will probably put out a list. We'll go through them with the team and then try to prepare them so that we can make things as clear as possible for you. Thanks a lot for the support. We are quite excited for the next several weeks. Progress is coming along well. Stay safe with the corona outbreak, and yeah, talk soon with more great updates. Thanks a lot, guys.
Okay, bro.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone,
Thank you,
and thank
sir.
you. All the best. Bye.
Bye.